Hey everybody, happy Wednesday. It is another Snipes and Stripes beauty with my beauty partner, Mr. Tim Peel, right here on nofilter.net. Peelsy, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing awesome, bud. I'm doing awesome. Excited about today's show. It should be fantastic.
Yeah,
And
especially with what's happening in Washington this year.
yeah,
Not only with Ovi chasing the record, but with how good the Washington Capitals have been, and nothing, no better person to talk about the Washington Capitals than good old Alan May, one of our old friends, and it'll be a lot of fun to catch up with him. But thanks to Whiskey in the Wild, whiskeyinthewild.com for your best whiskey, chocolate orange whiskey of all time. Protected net guards and my buddy Timmy Peel making sure that every young kid has the ability to protect themselves. Very important these days. And Bet Online, we appreciate the support from Bet Online. You want to make some money? Go to Bet Online, throw in a bet that today's show is going to be great because it's going to be. Um, but real quick before we bring Alan in, um, we're just having a conversation just offline with our producer Timmy Bales, and he was telling me, "Did you see the Ottawa fans booing the American national anthem last night, and Brady Kachuk sitting there with, rolling his eyes and how pissed he was?"
uh-huh.
Um, this has got to stop, man. This is just getting a little bit out of hand. And, he made a good point. I mean, Brady Kachuk, he is a very proud American,
Absolutely.
and he's the captain of their team. Um, it's not out of the question for him to say, you know what? Screw you guys. I'm not going to be a part of anybody that's going to disrespect my country. I want out of here.
You know what? It's I agree with you 100%. I just tweeted out something a few minutes ago because the Ottawa Citizen, uh, it's an opinion piece. So somebody in Ottawa, not a journalist, some fan wrote in and basically said, should Brady Kachuk be the captain because he wants to fight? Is he a good role model for kids? Should we watch the PWHL instead? Just a woke liberal. Like, I'm sorry, it's asinine. And I go, just when you didn't think people could get any dumber, I know of 31 other teams that would love to have Brady as their captain. Go send go fans. Enjoy the last few years left on his contract. Hashtag Arrivederci, because I think he is out of there. If he's got 4 years left, if he makes another two, if they don't make the playoffs this year, I could see him asking for a trade within the next two. He is such a proud young man. He's such a team guy. He puts the team before him or anybody else. But at some point in time, he's going to say, "I need to pull Matthew and get traded to a decent team
Well,
because
I mean, it's not out of the question, and it's not out of his character. He's a very loyal guy. Um,
very loyal."
and he has given so much to that team, and he's battled and he's played through injury and he's represented the team well, both on the ice and off the ice. But these people up there are going to bite themselves in the ass.
Yeah, they are.
Don't mess with a proud American, because he no problem saying, you know what, screw you guys. I'm
Yeah.
going someplace where they're going to honor my flag, and they're not going to boo my country and embarrass themselves.
What's
I you
that?
know what
What's that
I,
expression, Jr.? Don't bite the hand that feeds you. You know what I
yeah, well,
mean?
listen, it's getting really ramped up. I'm not going into political stuff, but you know yours people don't really understand the magnitude of what Canada taxes the United States for bringing in their goods into their country. It's massive.
Yeah.
It's massive. And, to get something back on them, and having Trudeau open up his yap and start acting like a prime minister for the first time in his ridiculous life. I have so much respect for Canadians, but this is they're getting a little crazy now. They're taking off all the alcohol out of the LCBO now in Canada, out in
which,
Ontario.
which they've already paid for.
Yeah, which they already paid for. So they're taking all the product. So now the companies that they're taking the product off are going to lose money on all that product that they bought. And you know, what's going to happen. United States is always going to win. We're going to be fine. And I know Canada will be fine, but Canada's going to get hurt more than America will, and that sucks. I don't like to see that. I love Canada. I love Canadians. I don't want to see that, but it just seems like hotheads are taking over right now, and sometimes stupid people, and they're
This
trying.
go ahead.
And you can't hold a grudge. You just got to do business, right? So let's hope they figure
This
something out.
this reminds me of the 2004 lockout when you guys got locked out by the owners and the players were going to win, we're going to win, and
Not
in
me. I was.
I
I got.
know, I know, but I'm just and in January we're getting messages. Barry Melrose, different guys were going back to work, and they had offered, I think, at one point 59 million or 50 some million as a salary cap, and the players said no. The whole season gets wiped out. We go back to work the next year. The salary cap's 39 million. Okay, the rich, and it's the same thing.
They always win. They always win.
United States will always win. They're too
Yeah.
powerful, and yeah, there might be some short term pain, but
Yeah.
you
Well,
know what?
Bob Goodenow and Ian Pulver, who ran that whole thing,
Oh, I know.
were donkeys. They were so bad. We will never accept a salary cap. Never. Well,
Yeah,
who won that? Okay. Not only did we have to accept the salary cap, but we had to give back a percentage of our contracts.
right.
Like, talk about an epic failure, right? You're supposed to listen to the people. You're supposed to listen to the people. You're supposed to listen to your constituents.
Constituent.
Goodnow and Pulver worked for the NHL players. There's about 50 of us that said, you know what? We should probably look at a soft cap. No,
Right.
no, no. Nobody believes that. I'm like, egos. All right, so let's bring in our buddy. Let's bring in Mr. Alan May, our Washington guru here. This is going to be a lot of fun. I've known Alan for a long time. You've known him for a long time, but he's just such an amazing guy. And obviously, his view on hockey and his view on the game is awesome. If you ever watch it, there he is. Look at that beautiful man. What's
I
up,
don't.
Alan?
I've been waiting. I was listening to you guys, but I didn't know all of a sudden my device all shut down. So
Well,
happy to be here.
That's awesome. Well, listen, we appreciate you being on. Obviously, it's been a lot of fun for everybody in Washington watching Ovi chase the record. Not only that, but watching this team just have an epic year. And I think the surprising team of the National Hockey League this year, the Washington Capitals, they have done things that nobody expected. Obviously, with getting a little older, but they've had some guys that stepped up, having monster years. I'm looking forward to chatting what the whole atmosphere is like in Washington. It must be fun to go to the rink every night.
Well, it is, and I don't know what happened, but my Bluetooth quit working when the device changed. But I don't know if you guys can hear me. Can you hear me?
hey,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
we got you
all good.
fine.
Okay,
All
good.
good.
Well, the biggest thing, it's been incredible. The team did a reset last year in June, and it was spectacular. They were risky, but they don't think they were risky in some of the players that they brought in. And the Dubois trade right off the bat, the Chychrun trade, free agency, all 7 free agents have hit it. And they did it. It was so methodical. What Brian McClellan and Chris Patrick did, it was spectacular. And I knew that they would be good. I thought not like top in the league, not top in the Eastern Conference, but I thought they'd be battling for the division lead. I know you have to stay healthy and everything, but every podcast, every stream I went on, every radio show, when I would say this, they would go quiet and kind of cowardly dismiss me, and I get the last laugh because
Don't
look
they
at
know? Don't they know the guru of hockey is Alan May? Don't they know exactly your prowess?
anyone that's been in it their whole life, when you look at it, when you really pay attention, I've been paying attention specifically to this team now for 16 seasons, and they were methodical. They didn't just go after shiny things and put them all like, the Rangers have done it a couple of times where they've already had a great power play. Then they brought in Patrick Kane and Tarasenko, excuse me, and all of a sudden you're trying to keep everyone happy. They brought in first line, second line, third line, fourth line, and the defenders that made the team so much better. And you already got Carlson. You bring in Matt Roy, who's arguably the best defensive defenseman in the National Hockey League by the eye test and by the numbers test for the geeks. And then Chychrun was a guy the Caps have been after. And what a one punch he and John Carlson have provided to the Caps in offense. And then Logan Thompson, a goaltender that's an awesome dude that plays with a chip on his shoulder. We already had Charlie Lindgren, a guy that battles every night. So I just looked at it and I thought, what is everyone paying attention to? And they upgraded their team in so many different ways, and it's made the players that those guys push down, it's made them better players. So that's my rant, and I'm not the all-time guru, but I just knew that those were the right fits for the Washington Capital. Carberry and his crew of coaches, they worked so well with all of these guys.
Well, JR, you mentioned off screen that a good guy Alan was, and you've known him for a long time, and I'm like, all I remember is hearing him yell at me all the time. I go, I don't know him that well. He just yelled at me all the time, so I'm hoping he doesn't today, and he gives me a little break. But before we get into it, Alan, before we get into the players, and you just alluded to Chris and Brian, what they did a tweak. JR and I talked about it last year, last year, where Washington and Pittsburgh were 1 and 2 as far as the oldest teams in the league. I looked it up yesterday, and Washington's now 8. So they've done that really in a short period of time. But before we get into anything else, I want to ask you how Craig Laughlin's doing. I love Locker. Great guy. He had open heart surgery. He brings a lot of passion, and he just loves the Caps, and I've enjoyed listening to him for years. And I think you might have a bit of a connection with what happened with him.
Well, Locker's doing better. He's progressing, and he had open heart surgery. He had 4 different procedures done at once, not a quadruple bypass. He had 1 single bypass, but some other things that went on with it. And his family was really worried about him the first week because he wasn't himself. And I was like, well, he doesn't do drugs. He doesn't really get hammered when we're drinking. He's supposed to cut off. So I said, he's got a lot of things going on right now. And I said, oh, by the way, when was the last time he had a coffee? And they go, well, he hasn't had a coffee since the surgery. I said, well, I'm bringing coffee over and I'm bringing some beer. We got to get his weight back up so he can be in the broadcast booth. And I'm going over to his house tomorrow. I'm taking all the Tim Hortons coffee cans that I have and a bunch of Treehouse beer. That's his favorite beer. I think it's from New Hampshire. I had a bunch of it imported here last week, and I'll make the delivery tomorrow. So I've got to get him back on the horse with the Treehouse beer and the coffee.
Luckily, you got that in before the 25% tariffs came in on imports.
It doesn't matter about those tariffs with the American dollar anyway. So.
Hey, Alan, I want to ask you before we get into Ovi and so on. You mentioned a player at the beginning that JR and I, we kind of beat him up last year, but I think everybody in hockey was beating him up. And that was Pierre-Luc Dubois. Going from Columbus to Winnipeg to LA and then to Washington. I didn't know what was going to happen. 15 goals, 37 assists. You see him every night. What's the difference that you've seen this year, maybe in previous years with Pierre?
Well, first of all, the Caps did their research on him, and everything they got out of Columbus was awesome. Even Winnipeg, and Winnipeg was a team in turmoil a couple years ago. And then you look at LA; it just wasn't a good fit for him. But since he's got here, this kid is smiling all the time. He might be the happiest dude on the team. I absolutely love him. JR, you'd love him. I thought I was going to be yelling at him and tweeting at him like I did at you, Tim. And
I don't know. Questionable. Questionable what I would like him. I watched him too many times in Winnipeg. I watched him too many times in LA. And I question how you have more fun in Washington, D.C. than you have in Manhattan Beach. I just don't understand that, but I totally understand what you're saying.
Right now, you've got to, and it's a lot different from when you and I played. And you played a lot longer than I did. And our coaches were dicks. They were jerks, a lot of them. And there was coaches that wouldn't even talk to you. There weren't that many guys. But now the coaches, you can't go to war with your guys. You have to communicate. It's so much different. It's like communicating with your children. The way our coaches coached us, if you brought your children up like that, they would be awful. And Spencer Carberry and his coaching staff, Kirk Muller, one of the happiest, best guys.
Love him.
Kirk's the best.
National Hockey League. I don't spend enough time with him. I want to hang out with him more. Scotty Allen's a lifer in hockey. I love him. Carbs has got an incredible personality. The entire coaching staff is so upbeat and positive. And, you have all those things off the ice out in LA and Manhattan Beach. To live there is a dream. I used to spend my summers out there. I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. But he's happy all the time. And JR, I came in here expecting to see the guy we saw in Columbus. I talked to Torts, my buddy Torts, about him, and Torts loves the kid.
Hmm.
And the reasons it didn't work in Winnipeg, I don't know, but his numbers were phenomenal. He had
Yeah, they will.
Well, I will say this. I will say this about him. The kid has some serious talent. He's big. He can skate. He's got hands. He can score. It just comes down to his attitude and to his determination and his grit. It is his decision to play the game and play it with intensity. I'm actually happy that he has found a place where he feels comfortable, where he can show off these talents. But I also like the fact that he's showing some pride in the mentality of I just spent 3 years on 4 different teams, and I'm making 7.5 or 8 million bucks. This is embarrassing. So I got to clean up my game. And he's been really good this year. I've watched a few games of his, and he's been scoring, especially as of late, putting the puck in the net. So I'm happy for him. I don't want to bag on somebody. I like to say good things.
he plays against the other team's top lines every game. And no matter who his wingers are, they performed incredibly well. When it was Wilson scoring goals left and right, Protas left and right, McMichael, everyone has been better when he's on the line. And I think he's made all of the forwards better, the way he uses his body. He's a big body guy. He probably learned some of the tricks of the trade watching Kopitar, who's one of the best players in the league. And he's like the West Coast Barkov. And there's a lot of similarities in the game. He's a big guy that can move the puck. He's involved. And one of the things here in Washington, and it's never been a thing, where the media doesn't pick fights and go after players. And our social media, there's a couple clowns around, but it's not hardcore. It's so hard to play in Canada. They haven't won a Stanley Cup since the internet started. And there's too much damn noise up there, if you ask me. And there's just hate coming from every direction. The members of the media that used to just write something once a day or maybe once or twice a week, you'd see their columns in the paper. Well, they're live tweeting now, and it's stuff that you might sarcastically say up top. But could you imagine how bad you would have got beat up when you were playing with some of the days you had and some of
Oh,
the
gosh.
well, you'd have been the dirtiest player in the league because of your
Yep.
and you'd have been hated like Tom Wilson. And then, you look at, and just people are making too much noise and there's too much sarcasm. And here, we got enough of that in politics in DC. We
Right.
don't
Yeah.
happen to the Washington Capitals, and the Capitals haven't gone to war with the media around here. And, we treat, I'm a partner of the team. Ted actually owns my network now. He pays me, but I'm still allowed to have my opinions left
Yep.
or
That's important. That's important now because you read the game really really well, and the way that you talk about it, the way you bring it across air is very understandable and easy to understand. You made that mention about Tom Wilson, and I've always loved this kid. I mean, how can you not love a Tom Wilson?
Mhm.
But this kid had to work his ass off to get to where he is. I mean, he was considered just a fighter, and the fact that he has that mentality, I don't want to be known as just a fighter, but I want to be relevant. This guy has probably improved more in the last 4 years than probably 99% of the league, if you ask me. And what an asset this kid is to the Washington Capitals.
Well, he is spectacular. I thought they brought him up incorrectly, and he gets mad when I say this, and he's a proud guy, and we're good friends. But I always thought he should have played one more year of junior, like Shifley did. He went back one more year,
Right.
kinks in his skating, and they're not now they're not. And there was a balance thing with Shifley at the start. He went back. He had a phenomenal coach in Dale Howardchuk. And I thought if Wilson went back, he'd have been a 50, 60, 70 goal scorer in junior, probably because everyone was scared shitless of him. And I
Mhm.
thought Burakovsky should have went down and then started in the minors. It's so hard to be a tough guy in the National Hockey League when you're 19 or 20 and 21. And look at all the guys that have been a train wreck over the years that started too early. I was lucky. I was a wrecking crew in the Atlantic Coast Hockey League, then the American League for a couple years. Then I got to the NHL, and I was older. I was 24 when I made it. Tom's a lot better than I've you know ever been, and but I thought this the guy who's going to get 30 plus goals this year, I thought that would have happened sooner. But he is the consummate pro, the team guy. He is a leader through and through. He and I do speaking events, and I'm so proud of him and impressed by him every single time we do things together, or just when we hang out or text with each other. He's all class, and he has turned a lot of people's minds. And if he was on Team Canada at the Four Nations, that opening game in Montreal would have been a little bit different between Canada
Oh,
and us.
oh,
And,
100%.
gloves would have been dropping. And he the other night we played the Ottawa Senators, and Brady Tkachuk, who grows on me every single time I see him play. They had a tilt the other night, and there was a lot of respect shown there. But they're the same guy. They're
Yep.
the players, but Tom was pigeonholed early into playing a certain way, and he also had to play behind TJ for a long time, and deservedly so, because TJ was an incredible Washington Capital and really developed his game when he got here. Because I don't know if he would have stayed in St. Louis if they ever would have used him properly. Because Doc just had him. I just used to think this guy's a little bowling ball out there. He got here, he had to figure it out. Quit passing to O and start shooting the puck. He became a 30-goal scorer every year. So he learned from great guys like Oshie. You've got Ovi in the dressing room, who is an absolute little kid, and they're so great together. But Wilson, I feel like he's still a young boy, but he's in his 30s now. And
Mhm.
yeah, and it's crazy too. Is it's you? I mean, you just mentioned, what if he was on that Canadian team? I don't think anybody would have scratched their head if
No,
a guy like Tom Wilson was on that team.
not at,
Um,
not at all.
which for
He'll
me is that is an amazing compliment for Tom Wilson. So hey, you never know. We got the Olympics next year. I
well,
don't know. There's no fighting in the Olympics, but there is room for a physical, hard nosed mentality guy that can score goals in in an Olympic Games. I wouldn't be surprised. That's a good point by you, Alan.
it,
well,
it,
he had an incredible assist the other night. He put the team on his back against Ottawa, and he was kind of pissed off. And he was in one the other day. He was like, he's always intense, but he ragged the puck out of the D zone. He had someone on him. He just shrugged him off. He rips down the ice, cuts through the middle, and then throws a pass to the middle of the ice for Marty Furavari. And it should have been the game winner. And I'm not going to complain about the refereeing, because one of the union guys is
No,
sort
please
of
complain about the referees. They suck.
refereeing portion of the night. And the standard that was developed early went away in the third and in overtime, and that's the part that pisses me off when it comes to the refereeing. But Wilson is a player, and in my opinion, I don't begrudge anyone that made any of those teams. The Caps didn't have a guy, and I thought Tom was going to be in a close one to make it. Konechny's having a season. You look at the roles they wanted guys to play, and I think the next time you're going to see Tom Wilson on Olympic team. I know there's no fighting, but it doesn't matter. He can still be a wrecking ball out there. He can skate. He is a fast skater for a big physical player. He is the best physical player in the National Hockey League. He and Brady Tkachuk are guys that bring it in every different facet of the game, and I expect Wilson to be on that team. And as I said, what an incredible quality human being. You hear that a lot in the league, but he impresses me every single time I'm around him.
it's funny the perception that people have of certain players or coaches or officials or whatever until you get to know somebody off the ice. Because you're absolutely right on Tom Wilson. I had a lot of FU contests on the ice, and then All Star break one year, we happened to run each other at in the Bahamas at the Cove, and I think half the NHL was there for the All Star break, and we have a couple beers, and then you realize, we're both in there doing our jobs, and and then after that, I came back and refed him for years, and it was always, hey Willie, I love the guy. So I want to ask you about because when Ovi was hurt, a player that I feel has really stepped up, and I didn't know he spent the first 9 years in Arizona and Chicago, so I didn't know if he was going to eventually be this type of player. But Dylan Strome, what can you say about him? He's 60 points. The guy is just he comes to work every game.
Well, when you look at this, and a lot of guys just run around and grab money and contracts, and for some reason he was a perfect fit here, and he put up really good numbers in Chicago. It was great,
Mhm.
but it's been a fit for him here, and there wasn't a whole lot of pressure because you still had Kuzi, you still had Backy, but he stepped up. He got such an incredible, smart, intelligent hockey mind. If he lacks in other areas he makes up for it, his hockey sense. And another guy that's great to be around, but we call him Stats because he knows everyone's stats. And when he's done playing, he'll be on a somewhere talking numbers. He is.
No, he's the one. He's the one that's in the shitter before every game with the stat pack he
Jay,
goes in, he grabs them, and he just sits in there and looks at them. I know this because I was one of those guys too.
the funny thing about him is I go, hey, well, I'll be in a locker room. I go, how many goals does he get? He's at 26. I got 20. Like it's that. He
Wow.
knows everyone around the league. But I like that. I remember when I played in Dallas in that first year, and Bob would have these, I don't know what, like trivia contests, skills contests in the morning because there was no hockey in the paper in Dallas. And, we didn't have the internet. And he'd go, who's in first place? How many goals does Rick Tocchet have? And I said, I don't care how many goals Rick Tocchet has. And we're in first place, things like that. I didn't know what was going on, but, you just had the stat pack on game day you'd pay attention to, but we just played hockey. And I think that's one of the great things about playing in the States outside of the original 6 towns is that you just play your hockey at the arena, your hockey at the practice rink, and you can live a lot. And I know, Jay, you're a guy that loved to have fun off the ice and be in friends like I did. And I like the fact that when I was with Mike Modano in Dallas, most people didn't know who he was. And, one of the best hockey players ever. And no one knew who he was or Darian Hatcher was, or, even when it was Eddie the Eagle and net there and all those different guys. I raised my kids in Dallas. People didn't know who those guys were. So they got to live a life. And I think that's one of the reasons that guys in the South keep winning the Stanley Cups because there's a separation of the game and your life. And you don't have to deal with everything. Like in Canada, you got people sneaking pictures of you when you go out to eat.
That's a
And
good point.
it's very tough when you're getting fire from every direction all the time, or what's
Yeah, I totally get it. Well, I actually appreciate the fact and about Stromey's ability to know stats or see stats because what it tells me is that he concentrates on it. And if you're going to be a point guy, or you're going to be a guy who is expected to create plays, to put points on the board for your team, to be an offensive leader, you have to have that in your brain. I was actually just thinking about this today because I was thinking about Ovi and I was thinking about things and about Ovi missing so many games to injury. I hated missing games because I couldn't pad my stats. I wanted to get out there and score. I wanted to score goals. I wanted to make assists. I wanted to build my stats. But I knew that if I did that, our team would have a better chance to win. It's not that I was selfish. It's just every time I was on the ice, I felt I had an opportunity to get a point, right? And I think that's a mentality that there's some players that go out there and be like, I hope I get a point, or my job is not to get points or whatever. So psychologically, you don't put yourself into those areas because you're not as hungry because you're not thinking about it. The fact that Stromey's sitting there saying he knows all the points, he knows what guys have, he's instinctively hunting those points down. And it seems like he has gotten better and better at scoring points the older he's gotten because he's gotten smarter. No?
I'm with you, and he's probably the guy that tells someone in the room, "Hey, you're 3 points away from 400 points, or you got 5 games, and we're going to play your 400th game in Arizona or Utah or wherever it's been the last few years." He's that guy. I love the fact that he's dialed in and knows that. And one of the things we forget, Jr. and Tim, is that we're all fans of the game, and you players make so much money. You're just thinking that guy makes 7.5, that guy makes 11, he makes 1.2. Some guy got $3 million for 6 years today, and you forget that these guys have the same passion and drive for the game that we did as we were kids. I'm on the bus. I'm at the back of the bus, and we're on a road trip. And the guys, as soon as they get on, they're MFing some guy that just got his 25th goal, or some guy just did. And they're already looking at the stats and seeing who's done what in the other games. I love it. We didn't have that. We had to wait for the box score the next morning in the paper, probably USA Today a day late. And I love the fact that it reminds me that they still love the game regardless of what they're getting paid. And I don't begrudge anyone for any amount of
No.
money. Biggest thing I would say with the big contracts is that find your fit so you get every one of your dollars. And I always go back to Brizgalov. Look what he was doing in AZ. Went to Philly. It was really the fit for nobody forever as a goaltender. And so find your fit, and you got to think about it. We've got 2 goalies here that signed contracts. They could have got a lot more as unrestricted free agents. They're fit for Washington Capitals and Lindgren and Logan Thompson. And I thought very wise decisions by the 2 of them. Phenomenal in the room, phenomenal on the ice. They know where their bread is buttered, and as being Washington Capitals goaltenders. And I love the fact that they didn't just chase after the Bucks, because a lot of times when you just chase after, go to the highest bidder, it's not going to work out, and you're
Yep.
going to get bought out. So I think
You just you just took my next question, because I was going to bring that up, because I knew Charlie Sideburns Lindgren from a little bit when he played here in St. Louis. I know his personality, and I think what I'm getting from you today, uh, because I know what a good teammate he is. Spencer, it goes from Spencer Carberry all down, and it's not because he's driven it, but the players you have on that team, they generally, and because listen, not everybody likes each other. We just saw it in Vancouver with JT Miller and Elias Pettersson. But I think this team really likes each other a lot, Alan, and the coaching staff. Like I've known, and you've known Kirk Muller forever. I'm a huge Spencer Carberry fan. JR and I talked about him last year. I don't know him personally. I've never met him, but I just love how he handles himself. I think he treats the players with a lot of respect. It just looks like this dressing room, they really like each other.
Oh, it's phenomenal. And you go to all the teams. I remember the team that won the Cup here in 2018. We were on the road, and it was Ovi's 1000th game. And I was with the team and did a show there, a special, and they crushed. It was the first time they finally figured out how to play the Penguins properly. And it wasn't, I always used to say, you can't out Pittsburgh the Penguins. You can't fly up and down the ice, because they're going to burn you at that game. They finally went into a defensive mode, but that team was so close. I remember the coaches all came out to me after the game, because I had been critical and played against the Penguins forever. And I would diagram blue line, like they've got to put 5 men at the blue line and frustrate and wait for opportunistic goals. The one that Kuznetsov scored to ultimately ice the Pittsburgh Penguins 6 games. But that team was so close, a lot of different personalities. This team is very close as well. We get down here in crunch time, we've got no controversy. And I think when you have too much controversy in your team, and if it's starting up with management and coaching from talking out of both sides of your mouth, and we've seen that around the league where there's a lot of problems in certain teams, and there's always rumors, gossip, innuendo, what it is. Where are those leaks coming from? Who's talking out of their mouth? That doesn't happen here. Big Mac's a great guy. Chris Patrick's phenomenal. And you go down, trickle here, is then we got guys hammering Ovi from the side, talking, to the media one way about the big man behind his back. They're
Right.
all Carlson is his best friend. It's hilarious. All they say to each other is Bab. Hey, Bab, love you, Bab. And it's like back and forth. And, they do it in the hallway before the game. They do it on the bus. They bump into each other in the lobby. It's hilarious. But there's great chemistry. And I think Chaser said it years ago. We got Shattenkirk one year, then we got Osh. And he said, we just lost the 2 best guys that have ever won, as far as phenomenal human beings.
Mm-hmm.
I think having Osh around here, he calmed a lot of the waters and brought everyone together. The trickle down now is that, he had an affect on everyone. And, he was all in with he was all in with Backy and Kuzi and the glue guys. Now you have a lot of glue guys here. They welcome everyone with open arms. The young kids aren't beaten senseless. Like JR and I took a lot of shit when we were younger. And the old, but unfortunately, fortunately for me, on every team I could beat the shit out of most of the older guys. I
Yes, you could.
I didn't
Yes, you
take
could.
much crap. When I got here, I think I was 23 or 24 when I got the Caps, but I already had 1,200 penalty minutes the first three pro.
Well, I think your record of 338 penalty minutes in one season is going to be safe for a while, buddy.
39. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyone ever 339, because I'm a stats guy too. I just know my PIMs, but it'll never get broken. And if it is, it'll be the most undisciplined player that's ever played the game.
Well, you should tell Ovi once he breaks Gratz's record to come back next year and break your record, since he can do these crazy records things. So let's get to the elephant in the room, right? Obviously, everybody's watching Ovi, and My first question is, what is it? What's it like around? What's the atmosphere around the team and in the locker room on the bus when you're seeing somebody like Ovi do something like in the hunt to do something so unbelievable, so epic, and what we thought we would never see in our lifetime. I mean, it's truly amazing. But what's the atmosphere like? I mean,
You know,
it's
it's positivity, and as I said, it goes back to the media, the players not being in a media hotbed, hockey media hotbed. If he doesn't score for 3 or 4 games, or he blows a back check, or for that matter, anyone else, they don't get beat up. So
Mhm.
it's positive, and there's been an electricity this season. Last year he struggled, and I was really, really worried because his legs weren't there. I always thought, even with Brett Hall, the shot will never go away for these guys. Well, last year Ovi was having his shots weren't the same. He wasn't puck properly. He was bobbling everything. His passes weren't on. And he went to Dubai and rode camels and did all that. And he came back and ended up, I think, with 31 goals last year. He's at 31 right now. And,
Mhm.
he had already have broken the record. We'd be looking at him in the 900s by now if he didn't break his leg in Salt Lake City. But, for the fact that the team, no one has altered a thing for Ovi. Uh, Everyone has been in it to win it. So what makes it so fun is they're the top of the Metropolitan Division, the top of the conference. A lot of nights it's between them and Winnipeg, who's first overall in the league, and they don't really care about that.
yeah. But how did that come across though, Alan? Because it's it's only natural to be on a team with a player that's as popular as Ovi is on a team. And obviously everybody wants him to get it. So for a player like Stromey or a player like I'm sure Backy, who's not even there, I'm sure you wish he could be in there, dishing to him and getting in all that. It's just it's a common thing for hockey players to care so much. Did Ovi say anything to him? Did Ovi just say, "Boys, listen, don't worry about me. I'll get the right. Let's just go play and have some fun." Because to me, I would think, knowing Ovi, that he would do something like that.
Continues to have the most fun of everybody inside the room. He's the class clown. They can pick on him. He makes fun of himself. Uh,
The modern day Joe Thornton.
and they love the game. They all love the game. Gretz, I look at how lucky I've been. I grew up in Edmonton, and I was in middle school, junior high school when Gretz got there in the World Hockey Association. And my dad, we always went to every game as long as I didn't have a game. And my dad went out in the WHA the day that they got Gretz, and he said, "Al, we're going to be in the NHL next year." He bought 13 season tickets for our family and our extended family that day.
Wow.
And some of my uncles and what have you, and so he goes, "We'll be in the NHL next year." He goes, "We get the greatest player that's ever lived." And what I was able to see as a kid, I was there the night he scored, the fifth, the goals to get him 50 goals in 39 games. I was at every game, I felt like. And then I was in the National Hockey League, and somehow I ended up a kid in a reality TV show, getting traded to the Oilers and watching him win his last Stanley Cup with the Oilers. And I just thought, man, I've been the luckiest hockey fan in the world. And now I'm a pro hockey player, getting still love the game. And here I get this job 16 years ago. I watched Ovi's first game in Dallas from my house, and I wasn't in broadcasting yet. And I was in absolute and utter amazement at how fast he could skate back then. There really was nothing like him ever, how he could wheel down, up and down the ice. And all of a sudden, all these years later, I thought there's no way that he's going to break Kretz's record because he's way too physical. I think since they started tracking hits, JR, that no one's thrown more hits than Ovi for forwards. I don't know where it's all at. I don't get carried away too much in that. I just love the fact that when he scores or his teammates score, he's Mark Messier reincarnated. It's a part of
Mhm.
it. And he's happy for everyone when they get goals. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't grudge any of his teammates. He's become a better teammate. He didn't have great leaders when he got into the National Hockey League. They didn't have any of these, phenomenal older guys they had in on the team. They had a fourth line guy that they brought in from Calgary, Chris Clark, who's a great dude, became the captain right off the bat. And, it's not like he had been around and had a big reputation, but when you look at it and everything that happens, all the players are all in on this. They all love it. I was in Winnipeg a couple years ago, and I was like, he's getting 800 in Chicago in a couple of days. So I'm in Chicago. I went in the broadcast booth because I think ESPN had it. Shelley had it with Steve Levy and Mess. I think it was Mess. And we're in there, and I'm in the broadcast booth, and I go to John Walton. I go, he's doing it tonight. He's getting 800. He's getting a Hattie. And it was so emotional to be a part of that I had to slow down a couple times because I was getting emotional. I love the game so much, and to be a part of those big dates and to be on the broadcast, I was like, wow, my life, what I've gotten in my life watching the game and being part of this. And then 2 nights later in Washington, as he passes Gordie Howe. But that night on the plane, and as I walked to the dressing room, I was getting the first interview with Ovi. He went to the dressing room in the 800 game. Backy and all the guys run the trip, Tom Wilson, there's like 7 or 8 extras that night. And the players knew that something was going to happen on the road trip. So they brought them all. They went in the dressing room. They were so gung-ho to be a part of it. The happiness was insane. It was like Stanley Cup happiness. He came out and did an interview with me. I started getting choked up because he was getting choked up. I had to end the interview. And then he was on the plane that night back to DC. And he sat down with everyone, had a quick drink, and thanked them for being a part of it. Us guys included, too, the training staff. And he understands what he's doing. For him to be able to be motivated by his children and his wife to score these goals and the high fives and the fist bumps with his kids in the first row, it's been spectacular. So there is that energy. And, the arena's full every night. It's buzzing. When he scores, man, I'm cheering in the booth. I don't hide the team. And, I'm a regional broadcaster. This is my team. And
Right.
I'm all in. The longer they play, I want 4 rounds no matter what. And but the hockey fan of me loves seeing what I'm seeing and how gracious he's been and how he thanks his teammates, the gratefulness. But they're all in on it. They love him. It's unbelievable. He's 39 years old. This is his 20th season. He and Sid, what they've been able to do, I just can't believe that it's happening because, as I said, I thought Wayne, and I still believe Wayne's the greatest hockey player that's ever lived. And even if I don't think his records get broken for his points. If it does, Wayne will be there too. And
Best goal scorer you ever seen?
Yeah, what's that?
Ovi, the best goal scorer you've ever seen?
Well, I'm still biased. Until he passes Wayne, it's still Wayne to me because Wayne scored 92. And I know goalies were different, but so were sticks. And Ovi and I did a thing 2 months ago in Edmonton. And we went into basically the Oilers Hall of Fame. And I was kind of schooling the guy who runs it. And we had Wayne's rookie jersey, those old Masca. Remember how those old nylon or whatever the hell that was? And it was all shredded to bits. And they were so cheap back then, the teams. It was just ripped to hell all over it. And we didn't put it on, but we had it out of the case. And then we took Gretz's sticks. And they came up to Ovi's belly button and to my rib cage. Oh, we all used these little sticks back then. And they weighed a lot, but they were short. And it's a different time. Goaltending's different now. There's so many coaches on the bench. Our coaches were really just another bad coach in a different suit. And basically, when we played, there was not different team to team. They were motivators and line matchers. Now it's all like they get their masters in hockey. They talk so much. There's 8 coaches on the bench. There's 3 goalie coaches. There's eyes in the sky. There's 2 and 3 and 4 video coaches. So the game is different. I would say that, Mike Bossy, I'm old enough to watch that. That guy was the best shot ever, I think. And up there, and Ovi's up there. And Ovi's is his bizarre shot, and he's the ultimate power shooter if there ever was one. That stick is like a boomerang when he rips those one-timers. He can shoot off either foot, can score from either wing. So I'm all in on Gretz and Ovi, Brett Hull, Mike Bossy, Guy Lafleur. So I love the game, and I love the fact that we're seeing.
You're a good politician, Alan May. You're a good politician, man.
Well,
he lives in DC, JR. So.
You guys would be happy where I spent last night.
To me, he's the best goal scorer I've ever seen.
Yeah, well, it's amazing, but the longevity of it, and Gretz had so many goals. Like Gretz was at 1,000 points by the time he was maybe 23 or 24, like 4 or 5 seasons into the NHL. But it was a different time. But I love him, and when he passes Gretz, he will be the greatest goal scorer of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And until then, I'm not giving him I love him, and Aaron, I'm not
All right.
saying
I don't think Ovi watches our podcast anyway, so you're safe going in the locker room tomorrow. It's okay.
you know what? He is a great. It doesn't matter. He's gotten mad at me before for saying he was banged up, and we did something, and we're spending $10,000 each at Toys for Tots, or one of those Toys R Us stores, and he's like, "Hey, quit saying I'm hurt." I said, "Well, what's wrong with your hand?" And he goes, "Nothing," and he shakes my hand, but he uses his left mitt, which is about this big.
Yeah.
So, no. The right hand, he can't shake my hand. So I go, okay, I'll shut up. But he's played through injuries. I know he's had a couple of, I think he may have had a knee surgery one season. During the season, I never missed a game. And
Right.
a little clean. Like he is, the body is insane. It's not what it used to be. But I remember my oldest son and I, when we saw him in the dressing room in 2010, he just had the jock on. He was going to do the urine sample for the Olympics that year, the golden goal year of Crosby. And he walked by and his legs were shaking. And it was like when we were down in Venice with T.R. Goodman. Remember those big bodybuilders and their
Yeah. Yeah.
legs were moving
Big ass thighs and legs.
but they rumbled his legs. There was like, and I go to my kid. I was like, "Holy shit! What the hell was that?" I'd never seen a hockey player with legs like that. But I do say, I saw Sid in a room about 4 years ago stretching in the hallway. DC's got it's an obsolete building. They're redoing the whole thing, and Sid's out in the hallway, and I think there's some like big giant obese man on his knees. I was going to help him up. I walk over to Sid. His calves are. I've never seen anything like it. I go, "What the hell are those?" And he just starts laughing. I know. I was like, I'd heard about them. PR ago, Jr. He was 14 or 15. He had these monster thighs, like just an absolute freak show. And Ovi's a freak like that. Sid's a freak. Supposedly these Hudson brothers are like that as well. They got these massive thighs, and it's a difference now. These guys all know how to train. We got into that stuff. I was always a workout guy, but
Mhm.
it's training next level with TR, and then you see what Gary Roberts and all these guys have done. O'Brien, it's next level. These guys are built like very large tennis players now, not like we were kind of bodybuilders. So it's completely changed. But Obi doesn't have the legs and the speed that he used to, and he hit I think 23 miles an hour a couple of weeks ago on a back check. Which was awesome. And he was the fastest, high-end skater for years. He would hit top end better than anyone in the league. I don't think he can do it for a lap like Sidney can, or certainly Connor McDavid. But he used to be able to light it up. So his skating amazed me. His shot, the way he used to dangle, the amount of goals that I've seen that are from skating as well, is just as many of those.
Mhm.
700. Was the skating legs, and then there were skating goals, and there were shooting goals, and it's been fun to watch, man. I love it. I'm in heaven watching all of this right now. It's been spectacular.
You know what, Alan? He mentioned two things, and that was his back check, which I was always amazed at. I'm like, this guy is one of the purest goal scorers I've ever seen. It would be so easy for him to be a one-dimensional player,
But he
but
wasn't like that all the time, Peelsy, because he was one dimensional before.
I know, but he's always his physicality is what's always impressed me, and he's played the game so hard. He is not a fringe player. Like he loves laying the weight, and that's what I've been impressed with. I know you know that the last four games because you mentioned Sidney Crosby. And I always say the NHL playoffs are better when Alexander Ovechkin and Sidney Crosby are in the playoffs. And the last four games that you guys have are Columbus for two, Islanders, and then the last game, as you know, is in Pittsburgh. I think it would be just a storybook ending that you could write a movie for him to score it in Pittsburgh. The fans there, that's a great hockey town. They have a huge amount of respect for him, and the respect that Sid and Ovi have. I think that would be just a fairy tale ending. What a way to break his record.
I'm with you on that. And the biggest thing for me is I hope it's on our air. We lose. The
Mhm.
Nationals have handicapped, and we've had to trade some games recently. As like, are we going to be side by side, or is it just going to be them? And I really do want Joe Beninati to be on the call. I really want Craig Laughlin. I'm in his spot right now in the booth, but I'm a team guy.
Yeah.
No matter what. I would love Joe and Craig to get a crack at it. I'm worried though that Ovi might just blister it again this week and get 3, 4, 5 goals, and then we're going to have Gretz and Gary Bettman around. but it would be incredible to do it with Sidney. I don't want those two guys to ever quit playing. I know what's going to happen. I was when Wayne Gretzky quit playing, and I was sad when Guy Lafleur and Bossy, and unfortunately that's what happens. Even Mess and Jr. There are personalities in the game that have made it incredible, and these two guys have been the story for so long. And if it would be fitting, and it would be great, and they become friends. That would be an incredible way, and I'd also like it to be done in front of our fans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Sidney would probably be the happiest guy on the ice besides Ovi. To tell you the truth, I think their respect between them and I was never a Crosby fan, but I'm a huge Crosby fan now. I've always been an Ovi fan. I've loved this kid since he came into the game. But the way that these two guys have represented the league for so long, um, it's it's really uncanny and remarkable. I mean, they remind you of Gretz and Mario in terms of that class and that keeping that high level of play up. So I mean, I have two questions for you, and I don't know which one to ask first. Okay, I'll save the one where I was just going to ask you, and I'm going to say, does Ovi get it this year? And if he doesn't, obviously he'll come back and play next year. But he's got Olympics next year. It's got to be hard at 39 years old, 40, playing as much as he does. I know he loves the game, but like this, would it be a letdown if he doesn't do it this year with the season they've had, and he has to wait all summer and come back again next year?
Well, I'm going to say, if I was a betting man, I would say that he does it this season. And it would be magical if it happens this season. And what he fooled us all, the way he came out at the start of the season with potting all those goals, then he breaks the fibula. And the leadership that he showed at that start of the year, the back checking. And, for so many years, I used to get so pissed off from people in the noise outside. Ovi doesn't want to win. It was a lot of the guys who were, older that, we were born and bred to hate Russians when we were growing up. And he didn't get it. He didn't get his due. And he wasn't on an original six team, so he didn't get his due that way. But I look at what an incredible ambassador he's been to the game, and he got beat up from so many different ways, but he's persevered. And they said he didn't care if he won. Well, he used to try to score every goal in the playoffs, not selfishly, because he wanted to win. And his teammates too many times weren't pulling on the same rope, and they would look down and, they'd expect him to score the goals, but you need those fourth line guys. You need a Ken Morrow type of player to chip in, a Lars Eller. You got to have the whole squad's got to be winning games. But when we saw him pick up that cup in Las Vegas, who would ever bet that 50 years
I
ago?
think he
Yeah.
I think he showed more emotion than any superstar in the expectation of the cup coming. Because I did those games in Vegas when Hopi made that save, the big save.
Yep.
Ovi was off. He was standing on the boards. He jumped so high, and the emotions. There's one player that I remember back in the day in New Jersey, Mike Peluso, who was a fighter. I remember him sitting on the bench, 4 minutes left in the game. Literally, he is in tears, crying because he knows that cup is coming. Ovi topped that with his excitement on the bench, with everything that he did was, and then when he got the Conn Smythe, he couldn't wait to throw that onto the bench. It's like, here, thank you very much, gone. That meant so much to me and told me so much about what Ovi stands for and how bad he wanted to win. It must have doesn't surprise you, I'm sure.
That year they were going to win the cup. And as I said, I told all my guys March 1st, bet the Caps to win the Stanley Cup. They go, you never say that. I said, well, this is the team. This is a true team. And I remember him he looked like an axe murderer. He was doing an interview with Pierre Maguire, and, it's that big beard, the gray beard, and he's got this hoodie on, and I think he had a beanie on, and he was so intense. And I bump into Pierre, and he goes, you guys are winning the cup. He was like, it was almost frightened. And there was just something. And I remember the second overtime game that they lost to Columbus, that game 2. And I spoke with PLD, Pierre-Luc Dubois, a couple weeks about this. And I said, you know, when we won the Stanley Cup? And he looked at me and I said, it was when he nailed you first shift, third period. He goes, I've never been hit so far. He nailed PLD so far. He went from the red line, landed on the face-off dot at the blue line, right from center. He just jacked him. And they lost that game. But Ovi, I think, had 7 power bomb hits and 7 huge shots in the third period. They lose in overtime. And Ovi was so defiant after the game. We are winning this series. And I believe he said 6 games. And to see the compete, and this team finally started scoring some ugly damn goals. Because I always say, if you play pretty, we're going to be sitting on the same bar stool in some beach somewhere the rest of the teams play. So they quit playing pretty. But he was so focused and energized every game. And the icing on the cake was Game 7 in Tampa. 1 minute and 6 seconds in the game, a one-timer. It was a big old finger to everyone in the hockey world. And the team went out that night, dominated Tampa, and went to Vegas ready to win a Stanley Cup. And there was just so many different moments. And, you know, I spoke to Gary Bettman last year in the finals at Edmonton. I wanted to take my son and see, like, real hockey country. And the games at Edmonton, how spectacular they are in the playoffs and certainly in the finals. And I go, Gary, I'm in the suite with them, and you guys will love this, with Shania Twain as well. My son has no idea who she is. My mom thinks I'm with Shania Twain and her husband. And we're up in the suite. But before everyone gets there, it's Bill Daly, Gary, my son, and I. And I go, Barry, there's something I've always wanted to ask you. He goes, shoot, you got about an hour and a half. Let's go. So we had real conversations, and I go, this one means a lot to me. I go, what is it like for you, and what does it mean for you to handle the Stanley Cup? Well, he got glassy-eyed. He goes, to see these guys transform, like every emotion they've ever had, every dream, as soon as they touch that cup, he goes, and he's talking about Ovi at the time, and he starts talking about it was Ovi. And to see what it means, and to me, that moment was so incredible for me. And Jeremy, we're lucky to play in the NHL. Like it was a gift. You had a Hall of Fame career, and congratulations. I loved it.
Thank you.
And I look at the most fun I ever had in hockey was covering the Caps in that run. It was amazing for me.
Yeah.
I love the game so much, and to see Owen Backy, and oh man, it was spectacular.
I had a blast, and I wasn't even as close to you. I mean, when I was doing it, I was doing the same thing. It was amazing.
Alan, one more question from me before we let you go, and I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to join JR and I today. We've got the trade deadline Friday. It was just announced this afternoon. Jack Hughes is out for the year, shoulder surgery. He's done. Bjorkstrom and Yanni Gord get traded from Seattle to Tampa, which Coop's very familiar with Yanni Gord, and Bjorkstrom can shoot that puck and score. So Tampa's loading up for another run. Do you see Washington having to make many changes? And if so, where do you think they could possibly improve on?
Well, they're in that tough spot where you change players. The year they won the President's Trophy, 2010, they brought in a bunch of guys, and they had too many guys, and it disrupted the team. And I don't think they were as methodical as they should have been that time. And when I look right now, the third line's out. It's been in question all season long. It's not really. It typically, without us, the fourth line gets more minutes than the third line here, and the third line's had a lot of different guys on it, left wing, right wing. You know, they bring Lars Eller back, and he's really got his game going the last 3 or 4 after he was out with illness. But I would expect that they would do something to enhance the third line. And they've got a first rounder, Alexander Alexeyev, who just went down to Hershey to get some games, and he's like +5 in 2 games, 6'4". And when he plays well. So there could be a depth defenseman to go along with those guys, but they've got such good chemistry and things are going the way they are. But sometimes you need a spark, and the way we've seen the offense with them a little bit lately, and the record a little bit, we got Ryan Leonard coming out of BC, but you know, when was the last time a college kid really made an impact? You know, there's Carr and Chris Kreider, and Chris Kreider I think was 2012. So Ryan Leonard, you know, he's still got to play with the big boys in the National Hockey League, and if they win or play in that national championship game, he'll be playing for the Caps next night. But I wouldn't I'd expect that they may do something, especially you see Florida loading up and Tampa loading up, and Carolina's made some moves. So it won't be earth shattering, but I think they'll still bring in a quality player that can elevate the top six. And the top has been rolling, so it's one tough decision. And guys want to play here. Arlington's a great town. Jr. wasn't here long enough to know enough about DC as a kid. Arlington's spectacular. It's where the
Yeah.
players can walk around. It's safe. It's a great vibe. And then you come into the city for the games. Players, once they get here, they realize it's a pretty cool town.
Well, it's going to be fun to watch the end of this season. Everybody's going to have their eyes glued not only on Ovi but the Caps. So my last question, and it won't take you very long to answer it because I've kept you for an hour. So we really appreciate it, Alan. You're such a good friend and such a great guy, and obviously we all know what you do on television. You're one of the best in the business. You've mentioned Hall of Fame with me, and I thank you for that. Two players went right into the Hall of Fame without any no grace period. Ovi and Sydney, they are these two the next two to go right into the Hall of Fame. No 3 years needed. I mean, that's I think what these two have meant to the game.
They have been the game when you look at it. They have to. I think it'd be so disrespectful for anyone not to have those as first ballot, first time. They have been, the lockup players since we lost a season, stupidly lost a season. These two guys have been the face of the game. Have
Yep.
they've been perfect? No, but they've gotten better and better with age. They're Sydney's like the perfect human. And Ovi's come so far. A kid that didn't know the language, but they have to. When you think of Washington, you think of the best athlete that's ever played in the city in any sport is Alexander Ovechkin. At Pittsburgh, you've got Mario, you've got some incredible Steelers, some Pirates, but Sid is the new wave, and he built that arena. Mario's got to be so proud of his adopted son, but it would just be the worst thing in the world if these two guys didn't go automatically in. There's other guys, and like Jr. What I really loved about the Capitals when they got into they won the Stanley Cup, and there were so many years that were letdowns. I go, there is no perfect potion. No one knows what it is, because if you did, even Scotty Bowman can't build you the perfect potion. He won a lot of cups, but it was a different time. It's harder now with the salary cap, and I think all those trials and tribulations have made the game better, and it made the Stanley Cup win for the Capitals that much sweeter because there was more heart, there was more soul. I look at you going to the Hall of Fame, the trials and tribulations to get there, the heart,
Yeah.
the energy, and the emotions that came out of you that night. And, for us guys that love the game and love the people of the game, I think it made
Yeah.
your that much even better. That when that call came, you're probably blindsided. I can't remember the story, but I'm pretty sure you were.
Yeah. It was insane.
Yeah.
It definitely took me by surprise, and they say what everything good comes to those who wait. Well, it made it better, but there's no question that Ovi and Sid will not have to wait. They should go right in the year they retire. Their ability to be the face of this league for so long and have that model of consistency and grace, to me is truly incredible, and we're going to see the same thing with McKinnon and with Connor McDavid and all that stuff. But they have great role models to look up to Ovi and Sid. So again, Alan, thanks for being with us, man. I really appreciate your time, and we'll be right with you rooting for Ovi every night. I look at the stats every morning, and I can't get his games, but I'm right on there. Did he score? Did he score? And half the world's doing that. The whole hockey world, for sure.
Well, hey, guys, thanks for having me. And Peeler, I will tell you this. So many guys over the years would go, lay off of him. But I'm an equal opportunist. I cracked on all of you guys. You got to have a beer with the guy. You got to have some drinks with the guy. He's a great guy. And so I promise we'll get together and we'll have some. I can't wait to see both you guys in person. And, it's been a blast being with the two of you.
He is a great guy, but there's a reason why he wears glasses now, because he couldn't. That's why he missed everything on ice.
You know what? Alan, one last thing is because I love Joe Beninati. Joe Beninati was always so nice to me. He's, as you know, he's just a gentleman and just a good person. And I hope that they get to call that game, because Dan McLaughlin and Mike Shannon were the play-by-play guys for the St. Louis Cardinals forever. And when Albert Pujols hit his game-breaking home run, it was on ESPN or whatever, TNT. Of course, they had to steal it from the local guys, and it sucked for those guys. I felt for those guys. They had been calling Albert's game his whole career. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen to those guys, because it would be a shame.
Yeah.
I always think too, and I can go on forever about this, but when you listen to all of Joby's goal calls, there was that goal in Arizona. There was the first one. A 499 against Henrik Lundqvist might have been my favorite. And I was working that game between the benches, and it was an end-to-end overtime by Ovi. Went through everyone. And it was just an amazing goal. And the celebration, 500 the next night, 501, Joe was there. And I want to hear that forever. I want to hear John Walton, who is spectacular. Those two guys, the mashup, and if it's a side-by-side game with the National Hockey League, that's great. I hope they put their best out there that night, whether it's a TNT guy or an ESPN guy. I want their best, but I want our best as a Washington Capital, and my broadcast who are great friends.
Listen, they should just have all the class in the world. They should have all the class in the world, and they should do every game, whether it's TNT or NBC, wherever they are, they should be doing it for them. Do special. I don't care if they're on contract with them. Just make sure they're doing the games. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hey guys, I got one last thing. I'm happy I didn't bail out on this today. I was at my health club, which is a pretty nice health club, and someone broke into my locker and stole my wallet and my iPhone today.
Oh.
My code for my iPhone. I had like 3 extra ones. I've been charging them up while we've been on the line here. So my credit card, all my emails, they've been trying to run my credit cards and my bank card.
Doesn't sound like it's too nice of a health club.
Sounds like the YMCA.
Oh, and it's a lot.
Well, listen, we love you.
Yeah, these people will get caught, and I'm going to have one more fight now that I'm in my 60s. I'm going to have one more.
I feel bad for those cats. Well, Alan, you're the best. We love you, man. I appreciate your time, and let's catch up. Let's catch up down the road. I'm sure we'll tip a couple of cocktails. We'll have some fun.
All right, take care, man.
See you guys. What amazing.
That was awesome. Yeah, he was fantastic.
He's just he is the epitome of entertainment.
Yeah,
because he tells stories. He sees the game the right way. He loves the game. It's passionate about it, and he's been such a loyal. He's been so dedicated for so long.
Yeah, I asked half the questions I wrote down, because he's just, you ask him something and he's a wealth of knowledge, and I'm happy that for him that he's around to see OV play and so on, because it's got to be a treat to be able to see him play in person every night. So it was awesome, buddy. That was fantastic.
Yeah, good show, buddy.
How about that? As we were doing the show, Smitty, our esteemed producer, sent me a text. He goes, "Jack Hughes out for the year, shoulder surgery."
That's a huge blow to the New Jersey Devils. So you would think we're talking about the trade deadline coming. I mean, you would have to think that New Jersey's got to do something desperate here right now just to try to help that loss.
You and I, we talked about it last week when we talked about the Four Nations. I'm almost positive that I brought up that Bronson said to me, "Dad, Hughes gets knocked off the puck all the time. The guy is too slight, and I don't know how you fix that, but he's got to get bigger, man, because he's hurt all the time because he's just slight."
And you know why? It's because he usually goes into those high traffic areas. This guy, Jack Hughes plays the game the right way. He goes hard. He goes hard to the net. He gets in there. He's not afraid to mix it up. And even though he might not have the stature, it doesn't stop him from playing the game a little recklessly. And you got to love him about that. I feel awful for him.
That sucks for Jersey.
I feel bad for him. I feel bad for the Devils. But we'll wish the best of them. But good show today, buddy.
Hey,
awesome job. Awesome job. Thanks to Whiskey in the Wild, whiskeyinthewild.com. Our protected net guards, and of course, Bet Online. We appreciate everybody's support. And again, that's another killer. We did win the best show of the week right there, because that was our only one.
That was awesome.
Stripes. right here on nofilter.net. We love you. I love you, PLZ. You're the
Love you, buddy.
best.
See ya.
See
Bye.
you next week.